Sebastian Hale had built a life where everything obeyed structure: numbers, contracts, board meetings, and private jets that moved according to his command. As the founder of a global artificial intelligence empire, he was used to control. Airports, to him, were nothing more than polished corridors between one negotiation and the next. But that winter night at Heathrow Airport would fracture the order he had spent decades perfecting. He had just stepped out of a delayed international flight, irritation still clinging to his expression, when his eyes drifted toward a quiet corner near Gate 42. At first, he would have walked past. People slept in airports all the time. But something, a face, a posture, a memory half buried, rooted his feet to the marble floor. A young woman lay curled on a metal bench, wrapped in a faded gray blanket that looked too thin for the cold. Two toddlers were tucked against her chest, their tiny hands gripping her coat as they slept. Sebastian's breath caught. "No, it can't be," he whispered under his breath. His assistant, Martin, who had been walking beside him, stopped. "Sir?" Sebastian didn't answer. He stepped closer, slowly, as if afraid the scene would vanish if he moved too fast. The woman's hair, once glossy and carefully tied, now fell loosely over her face. Her shoes were worn, her cheeks hollow, but there was no mistake. "Lena," he said softly. The woman stirred slightly, but did not wake. Sebastian's heart began to pound, not from recognition alone, but from the sight of the children. Two of them, identical, fragile, asleep in the arms of the woman who had disappeared from his life 3 years ago without a word. Memories Sebastian had locked away began forcing themselves to the surface. Lena Moreau had worked in his mansion for 2 years, quiet, diligent, almost invisible in the way exceptional staff often were. But she had never truly been invisible to him. He remembered the way she hummed softly while arranging flowers, the way she spoke gently to the elderly house chef, the way kindness seemed to follow her presence. He had noticed her, more than he allowed himself to admit. "You work too hard," he had told her once, finding her polishing the grand staircase late at night. She had smiled politely. "Work is good, sir. It keeps the mind calm." "You can call me Sebastian when we're alone," he had said impulsively. She shook her head quickly. That wouldn't be proper. Yet over time, walls had lowered. Conversations grew longer, warmer. Then came the diagnosis that shattered him: infertility. The doctors were clinical about it. Final. Irreversible. He remembered sitting in his study afterward, staring at the city lights. Lena had knocked gently that night. "You forgot your watch in the library," she had said. He barely looked up. "Leave it there." She hesitated. "Are you all right?" He laughed bitterly. "Do I look all right?" She stepped closer, concern in her eyes. That night had blurred into grief, confession, and a moment of human closeness he had never planned. And then she was gone. By morning, Lena had vanished. No goodbye. No explanation. Only silence. Sebastian had convinced himself she left out of shame, or regret, or ambition. Anything but what now stood before him on that cold airport bench. Sebastian crouched slowly in front of the bench, his tailored coat brushing the floor. He studied the toddlers more carefully now. Their faces were soft, peaceful, unaware of the storm forming around them. One shifted in sleep, revealing a small birthmark near his ear. Sebastian's stomach tightened. He had that exact mark. His voice came out hoarse. "Lena, wake up." The woman stirred again, eyelids fluttering. When her eyes finally opened, confusion came first. Then recognition struck like lightning. She jerked upright instantly, clutching the twins protectively. "Mr. Hale," she stopped herself, breath shaking. "Sebastian." Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. He swallowed. What is this?" His eyes moved from her face to the children and back again. She followed his gaze and immediately looked down. "You shouldn't have to see us like this." "Answer me," he said, more urgently than he intended. One toddler whimpered softly. Lena rocked him instinctively. "They'll wake," she whispered. Sebastian removed his coat without thinking and draped it over the children. "They're freezing." Her eyes widened slightly at the gesture. You always hated the cold, she murmured. He ignored that. How old are they? She hesitated. 2, just turned 2. Sebastian did the math instantly. His pulse roared in his ears. Lena, his voice dropped to a near whisper. Are they mine? Tears filled her eyes before she could answer. That alone told him everything. She nodded once, small, fragile, but undeniable. Sebastian staggered back a step, as if the ground had shifted beneath him. That's not possible, he said automatically, though his voice lacked conviction. The doctors said I couldn't have children. Lena gave a tired, sad smile. Doctors can be wrong. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing a tight circle. Why didn't you tell me? Why disappear? Her expression hardened slightly, not with anger, but with remembered pain. I tried. He stopped. What do you mean you tried? I called the office, she said. Many times. Your secretary said you were overseas for months. She said you didn't wish to be disturbed. Sebastian's eyes darkened. I was abroad, but I never received any message. She looked away. After a while, I understood. A maid claiming she carried a billionaire's child? It would sound like blackmail. You should have trusted me. Trusted you, she echoed softly. You had just been told you were infertile. You were drowning in your own grief. If I told you I was pregnant, you would think I was lying or worse. He had no answer to that. She continued, voice trembling but steady. I left to protect my dignity and your reputation. I thought you deserved peace. He looked at the twins again, their tiny fingers curled into his coat. Peace, he whispered. You call this peace? Her silence was heavier than any reply. A boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, Sebastian's flight to New York. Martin approached cautiously. Sir, we need to board in 10 minutes. Sebastian didn't even look at him. His eyes remained fixed on Lena and the children. Cancel it. Martin blinked. Sir, cancel the flight. Cancel the meetings. Cancel everything. Lena looked up sharply. You don't have to do that. He knelt in front of her again, this time slower, gentler. I do. His voice softened in a way it never had in boardrooms. These are my children. She searched his face for doubt, and found none. Sebastian, I never wanted to trap you. You didn't, he said firmly. One twin began to wake, small eyes blinking open. The child looked straight at Sebastian, curious, unafraid. Something inside him broke and rebuilt in the same instant. He reached out hesitantly. The tiny hand grabbed his finger. Sebastian exhaled shakily. What are their names? He asked. Lena's voice warmed for the first time. The boy is Elias and the girl is Aloan. He repeated them softly, as if memorizing sacred words. Then he removed his scarf and tucked it around them more securely. No child of mine sleeps in an airport again, he said. Lena's eyes filled with tears, not of fear this time, but fragile relief, as Sebastian Hale silently stepped out of his old life and into the family he never knew he had. Sebastian's penthouse overlooked the Thames, a glass masterpiece suspended above London's glittering skyline. Yet that night, as his driver pulled into the private underground garage, the luxury felt strangely hollow to him. Lena stepped out slowly, Elias in her arms while Aloan slept against her shoulder. She hesitated when she saw the towering lobby. I don't belong in places like this, she murmured. Sebastian heard her and stopped beside her. You belong wherever our children are safe, he said gently. She looked at him, uncertain whether to believe him. Inside, the staff froze in visible shock as Sebastian personally carried one of the toddlers. Prepare the East Wing, he instructed calmly. 2 nurseries. Tonight. One house manager blinked. Tonight, sir? Sebastian's tone didn't change. Tonight. Lena watched all this quietly, overwhelmed. When they entered the private elevator, she finally spoke. You're changing everything so fast. He looked down at Elias, who had fallen asleep against his chest. I've missed 2 years already, he said softly. I won't miss another day. The first morning felt surreal to Lena. She woke in a silk-lined guest suite, sunlight pouring through automated curtains. For a moment she panicked, thinking she had dreamed everything. Then she heard giggling. She rushed into the nursery where Sebastian, still in yesterday's shirt, sat on the floor awkwardly assembling toy blocks. Elias knocked them over repeatedly. "I think he enjoys destroying my work," Sebastian admitted. Lena laughed before she could stop herself. It was the first genuine laugh he had heard from her in years. Eloan toddled toward him, raising her arms. He hesitated only a second before lifting her. "She trusts you already," Lena said quietly. He looked at the little girl studying his face. "I'm trying to earn it." Then his expression shifted. "Lena, I need the truth about everything. No more silence." She nodded slowly. "After I left, I moved cities. I worked cleaning offices at night. When the twins came, it got harder. I didn't want charity, so I endured." His jaw tightened. "You endured homelessness?" She looked down. "Only recently. Work dried up." He exhaled sharply, guilt washing over him. By the third day, the story broke. A paparazzo had photographed Sebastian leaving a pediatric clinic with Lena and the twins. Headlines exploded. Tech billionaire discovers secret heirs. News vans gathered outside the penthouse. Lena panicked when she saw the coverage. "This is exactly what I feared," she said, pacing. "They'll tear my life apart." Sebastian remained calm. "Let them talk." "You don't understand scandal the way I do," she replied. "They'll call me a liar, a gold digger." He stepped closer. "Then we face them together." She looked up, startled by the word together. He continued, "I spent my life controlling narratives. But this is personal. I won't let them reduce you to gossip." She whispered, "Why are you being so kind to me?" His answer came without hesitation. "Because you protected my children when I didn't even know they existed." That evening, Sebastian held a private press conference in the grand atrium of his corporate headquarters. Lena watched nervously from a side room. "You don't have to do this," she told him earlier. He had simply replied, "Yes, I do." Standing before flashing cameras, he spoke firmly. 2 years ago, I learned I was infertile. Recently, I discovered that diagnosis was incorrect. I am the father of twins, Elias and Nn'efolktales. Gasps rippled through reporters. He continued, voice steady but emotional. Their mother, Lena Moreau, raised them alone with dignity and courage. Any attempt to discredit her will be met legally and personally by me. From the monitor, Lena covered her mouth, tears streaming. She had expected acknowledgement, not public honor. When Sebastian returned home, she whispered, "You gave me respect I never asked for." He answered quietly, "You deserved it long before today." Days turned into weeks, and routines began forming. Sebastian adjusted his empire around bedtime stories and pediatric appointments. One night, Lena found him asleep in the nursery chair, alone on his chest, a business tablet still glowing beside him. She gently took the device away. He stirred. "Board meeting," she teased softly. He shook his head. "Cancelled. Elias had a fever." She studied him carefully. "You're sacrificing a lot." He met her gaze. "I built companies from nothing. I can rebuild schedules. But I can't rebuild lost childhoods." She sat beside him. Silence settled, but it was no longer heavy. "Sebastian, why didn't you hate me for leaving?" He thought for a long moment. "Because the night you left, I hated myself more." One afternoon, while the twins napped, Sebastian handed Lena a file. "What is this?" she asked. "Property deeds. A trust fund. Education plans." She stiffened. "I don't want your money." He anticipated that. "It's not charity. It's responsibility." She pushed the file back. "I survived without it." His voice softened. "You shouldn't have had to." She looked at him, conflicted. "If I accept, what does that make me?" He answered gently, "The mother of my children. Nothing more. Nothing less." After a long silence, she opened the file, not for herself, but for Elias and Eloan. Winter melted into early spring. The twins' laughter began filling spaces that once echoed with corporate silence. Sebastian found himself leaving meetings early just to hear them say, "Papa." The first time Elias said it, he froze. Did he just?
Lena laughed. Yes.
He did. Sebastian blinked rapidly, emotion catching him off guard. That night, standing on the balcony, he admitted, I used to measure success in billions. Lena joined him. And now? He looked through the glass at the nursery. Now I measure it in bedtime hugs. But one question remained unspoken between them. It surfaced quietly one evening after the twins slept. What happens to us? Lena asked. Sebastian didn't pretend to misunderstand. I don't know, he admitted. But I know I don't want you disappearing again. She looked down. I was never sure you could love someone from my world. He stepped closer. My world was empty without you in it. I just didn't realize it in time. She searched his face, not for wealth, but sincerity. We start slowly, she said. He nodded. Slowly is fine. As long as it's forward. Months later, the media frenzy faded, replaced by a quieter public fascination. Photos emerged, not scandalous, but tender. Sebastian pushing a stroller, Lena laughing beside him, the twins bundled in winter coats. Public opinion softened. One evening at a charity gala, a reporter asked, Mr. Hale, what changed your life most this year? He didn't hesitate. Missing a flight, he said simply. Across the room, Lena smiled, knowing the deeper truth behind those words. On the second birthday Sebastian celebrated with them, the first he had ever attended, the penthouse transformed into a wonderland of balloons and soft lights. Elias ran in circles wearing a paper crown while Aloan clung to Lena's dress. Sebastian lifted both children at once, laughing freely, a sound once rare from him. Later that night, after the twins fell asleep, he and Lena stood watching them. You found us on a bench, she said softly. I almost walked past, he admitted. She turned to him, eyes glistening. But you didn't. He took her hand, not hurried, not uncertain this time. No, he said. I didn't. And I never will again. Outside, the city lights shimmered, but inside the quiet nursery, Sebastian Hale finally understood that the greatest empire he would ever build was not made of technology or wealth, but of love, forgiveness, and the family he nearly lost before he even knew they existed. Life did not transform overnight into perfection, and in many ways, Sebastian was grateful for that. The small imperfections made everything feel real. One rainy afternoon, he returned home earlier than expected and found Lena in the kitchen, sleeves rolled, attempting to bake with Elias and Aloan perched on stools. Flour covered the marble counters and the children. Sebastian leaned against the doorway, amused. I employ 5 chefs, he said. Lena didn't turn. And yet none of them know Elias prefers extra chocolate chips. Elias beamed proudly. Mama knows. Sebastian loosened his tie, stepping closer. Then I suppose I should learn from Mama. The word slipped out naturally, and both adults noticed it. Lena looked at him, surprised but warm. He picked up a spare apron. Teach me? She handed him a bowl. You'll make a mess. He smiled. I already did. Years ago. I'm just cleaning it up now. The honesty in his voice lingered longer than the joke. That afternoon, flower fights replaced boardroom negotiations, and Sebastian realized healing sometimes happened in kitchens, not conferences. As spring deepened, Sebastian made a decision that startled even his executive board. He reduced his corporate role, delegating daily operations for the first time in his career. During the announcement, one director protested, You're stepping back at the peak of global expansion. Sebastian simply replied, There are other peaks I intend to climb now. That evening, Lena confronted him gently on the balcony. You shouldn't give up your empire for us. He shook his head. I'm not giving it up. I'm redefining it. She studied him carefully. Do you regret not knowing about the twins sooner? His answer came heavy but honest. Every day. But regret is useless unless it builds something better. He gestured inside where Elias and Aloan were stacking blocks again. So I'm building better. Lena's eyes softened. You really have changed. He exhaled. No. I think I finally became who I was supposed to be before fear and pride got in the way. One quiet Sunday morning, Sebastian took Lena and the twins back to the airport, the very terminal where everything had changed. She looked uneasy stepping onto the polished floor again. "Why bring us here?" she asked. He guided her gently to the same row of benches near gate 42. The memory hung thick in the air. Elias climbed onto the seat, unaware of its history. Sebastian spoke softly. "This is where I almost lost my family forever." Lena swallowed hard. "It's where I thought I'd never be seen again." He turned to her fully. "I see you now."
Completely.
Not as staff. Not as scandal. But as the woman who protected my children when I couldn't. She blinked back tears. He continued, voice steady but vulnerable. "I don't want separate lives that intersect only through the twins. I want one life, together." Her breath caught. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" He nodded slowly. "I'm asking if you'll stop surviving beside me and start living with me." Tears slid down her cheeks as she whispered, "Yes, Sebastian. Yes." A year later, the transformation was undeniable. The Hale estate, once quiet and museum-like, pulsed with warmth. Toys lined hallways. Crayon drawings hung in Sebastian's private study, more valuable to him than any stock certificate. On a golden summer evening, friends, staff, and a handful of media gathered in the garden. Not for business, but for a wedding. Lena walked down a flower-lined path, Elias clutching her hand while Aloan scattered petals with great seriousness. Sebastian waited at the altar, emotion unhidden. When Lena reached him, he whispered, "You found me even when I didn't deserve it." She smiled softly. "You found us when it mattered most." As vows were exchanged, the twins giggled loudly, stealing the moment, and neither parent minded. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sebastian stood with Lena and the children in his arms. The same man who once measured life in market dominance now measured it in laughter echoing across his home. Looking at his family, he murmured, "The greatest miracle wasn't discovering I could have children." Lena squeezed his hand. "What was it?" He smiled, watching Elias and Aloan chase fireflies. "Discovering the family that was waiting for me to become worthy of them." And beneath the fading light, surrounded by love he almost missed, Sebastian Hale finally understood. Destiny had not been written in boardrooms or diagnoses, but on a cold airport bench where a broken past and a hopeful future chose to meet.